This happened to me back in November 2023. I was hauling a load from Arizona to Oklahoma. It was around 2 a.m., and I was driving down Route 66 in the middle of a heavy rainstorm when my CB radio suddenly exploded with static. I've been driving trucks for nearly 15 years, and I know this route like the back of my hand. But that night, the highway felt unnaturally dark. My headlights barely seemed to cut through the rain. Then I spotted a young woman standing on the shoulder. She was wearing a white lace dress, completely soaked, with her hand out asking for a ride. At first I wasn't going to stop, but seeing a young woman alone in that weather, I couldn't just leave her there. I unlocked the passenger door. She climbed in without saying a word. After a few seconds, she softly whispered an address, 12 Mill Road, 11 miles ahead. I pulled back onto the highway. I glanced in the mirror and saw her sitting perfectly still, staring out the window. Water kept dripping from her hair, but somehow the seat underneath her wasn't getting wet. I asked, "What are you doing out here this late?" She never answered. About 10 miles later, I pulled up to an old house. Every light was off except for a single yellow porch light. I said, "We're here." I turned toward the passenger seat, and it was empty. The door was still locked from the inside, and the seatbelt was still buckled, like she'd somehow passed right through it. Every hair on my body stood up. I forced myself to walk to the front door and knocked. An elderly woman answered. I told her. A young woman asked me to bring her to this address. She stared at me for a long moment, then burst into tears. "That was my daughter, Emily," she said. "She died in a crash on Route 66 20 years ago. It was a rainy night just like this. She was coming home from prom, still wearing that white dress." Then she quietly added, "Ever since then, whenever it rains, some driver brings her home." I didn't stay another second. I ran back to my truck, slammed the door, and drove off as fast as I could. But before I disappeared down the road, I looked one last time in my mirror, and standing beneath that yellow porch light was the same girl in the white lace dress, slowly raising her hand and waving goodbye. This happened in 2022. I owned an old wooden cabin in the mountains of Colorado that I rented out on Airbnb. The place was extremely secluded, but the views were incredible, so it stayed booked almost year-round. Last October, after one couple checked out, they sent me a message that said, "Thanks for the extra blankets last night." The problem was, I never gave them any extra blankets. I figured maybe my cleaning crew had left some out without telling me. 3 days later, another guest left a review that said, "The cabin was beautiful, but please tell your kids not to run upstairs at 2 a.m. That made my stomach drop. I don't have any kids, and the cabin only has one floor. That's when I started getting suspicious. I opened the footage from my Ring cameras. At exactly 2:13 a.m., the indoor camera in the kitchen captured something I still can't explain. A little boy and a little girl were running across the room, laughing, while a woman slowly walked behind them. I called 911 immediately. The deputies arrived within minutes and searched every inch of the cabin. No one was inside. As one of the officers was leaving, he stopped and said, "You probably don't know this, but the original cabin that stood here burned down in 1978. A mother and her 2 children were trapped inside and died in the fire. This cabin was rebuilt years later." I shut down my Airbnb listing that very night. I never rented the cabin out again, but even now, every once in a while, at exactly 2:13 a.m., my phone lights up with a notification. Motion detected in kitchen. I open the live camera feed, and there's never anyone there. The only thing that's different is that 2 dining chairs have been pulled away from the table, like someone had just gotten up and walked away.